right, we finally can start. Thanks so much for your patience. Welcome to BraveMaker's sauna in Los Angeles here in March of 2026. We're really glad that you're here. We are recording this live as well, so anybody who jumps on our YouTube channel will be able to see this, and it will live forevermore. So just be careful what you say to our panelists and to our guests. My name is Tony Gapastone, and I'm the founder of BraveMaker. We're based in San Francisco, by the way. We've been coming to LA once a month to do events like this. We have a film festival, and we have classes and online community things. You'll see behind me, we encourage you, use social media, follow us at bravemaker.org. If you hear something that sounds interesting and engaging, you want to follow these directors and tag them and quote them, we definitely welcome that. And we're going to have a conversation for about 45-ish minutes. We'll do some question and response time, and then we'll go across the street for a mixer for some food, buy your own drinks at the New Deal restaurant. And my hope is for our work here at BraveMaker, we are a nonprofit, by the way, so there are 75 people who support us every month to be able to offset things so that we can do our classes and do our film festival. Has anyone ever been to Sundance? In this room? Yes, we have a Sundance award-winning filmmaker in this room. You'll hear more about that tonight, but I was so inspired by my 13 years of going to Sundance that I wanted to find a way to bring that to my friends in the Bay Area, because it's very expensive to go to Sundance, and it was far, and it's cold, and so we tried to create maybe the Temu version of Sundance, where it would be accessible and not as bougie, and I think we have succeeded in a way that I'm really proud of. And now as we're expanding here to the LA area, our hope is to create space, to create relationships, and we often say our hope is you make friends that you can then make movies with. So with that, I'm going to invite up our three panelists. Come on up here, directors. We have Will Caballero, Londi Maduro, and Tracy Hayes. These three are all working directors, doing all sorts of cool stuff, and I'm really happy that you could join me today. Some of us have been, we did things on podcasting and other stuff back in the days, and following each other on social media has been a great way to stay in touch. And so when we do these kind of things, I get really excited to see who jumps in every month when we come down here, is who's going to be on the panel, what kind of panel we're going to make. Last month we were here, it was kind of like we had a manager, we had an actor, we had a hyphenate. I was like, well, let's do something really focused and talk about directing. So I asked these three, they're just meeting today for the very first time. I asked them to get to know one another just like you all did, and then they were going to introduce the other and not introduce themselves. So let's start with you, Londi, and you are going to introduce. You're introducing Will or Tracy?
Tracy.
You're introducing Tracy. All right, let's go.
All right, so the lovely Tracy Hayes, who happens to be wearing a lovely hat, right? Looking very cute. You should applaud for that, Tracy Hayes, right? All right, so Tracy is from the Bay Area. She is a freelance director. She has directed 6 studio distributed features.
6.
Yes, okay for the 6. Her latest film is coming out May 2nd on A&E. And it is Martha Corelli's story. So you should definitely support her. May 2nd. May 2nd. Let's support her. And check out her
Tracy
film.
Hayes. Yeah. That's a feat. We're going to talk about that today. 6 features. Dang. All right, your turn.
All right, I'm going to try not to butcher your last name. Will Caballero?
Caballero.
Okay, see, all right.
Caballero.
He's from New York and has been living in Los Angeles for a while now. He's a producer, director, animator, and has been to Sundance now with 3 films, which is so impressive. His latest film, yes, applaud, I love that. His latest film, They Dream, won a grand jury award this past year at Sundance, which is amazing. It's a feature film, and it was funded by the public medias, and he's off to go support the film in other festivals. I'm excited to hear more about it.
They Dream, I watched it on the online Sundance. I was at Sundance in person, but you can't watch all 100 some features, and so I got home and I maybe watched 10, and I saw this, I was like, oh, immediately got online, searched for Will, found him, DM'd. He came last month to our BraveMaker LA event, and now he's here. It's like the power, again, of social media. People underestimate how powerful you can reach out to people and make connections, and the film is so good. So glad you're here, Will.
Thank you. Glad to make it. We're going to rebrand this as the Fun Dance panel. And introducing the fabulous Landi Maduro, who is a writer, director, producer. We go way back to like 15 minutes ago. She teaches filmmaking. She's also a filmmaking coach. She teaches both the cinematic and business side of filmmaking. I need some tips on the business side because Lord knows this is a hard industry. We're all crazy for having pursued it. And she also runs a nonprofit called Women of Color Filmmakers, which helps women get into both film and TV. She sounds like she does a lot of everything, a lot of producing, and she made a very powerful documentary about prostate cancer, how it affects the Black community, which was championed by the Congressional Black Caucuses. So we are in the presence of an amazing multimedia phenomenon. So yeah, glad to be here.
I remember when I first met you, Landi, I felt like, wow, I feel like the infinite hyphenate. You truly are the infinite hyphenate of all infinite hyphenates doing all the things. So yeah, let's jump into it. I gave them this question, and I often don't do a lot of sending the questions to our panelists. I like to just try to keep it conversational. So I told them we might get to all these questions or none of them. Who knows? But we'll at least want to have this question because I think it's kind of a fun one. Is when you think about your directing style or philosophy, if you were going to give your TED Talk, now we don't have 18 minutes a person, but what would you say is the POV you bring to set as a director? What are some of the high, viewable values when you think about, I know I'm going on set or I'm prepping this documentary, you go, this is who I am as a director. What would you say would be that TED Talk? And who wants to jump in first? Go for it, Tracy.
I don't know, I was just thinking about it. There's a motto that I go by that I pretty much talk to first day of filming on any movie I do, which is we work too hard not to have fun. And I think that's very simple, but a lot of times we forget it when we have not enough money and time, which is true no matter the scale or budget you're ever working with. And it's very easy to get stressed out and start to feel frustrated, and the world's closing in on you, and everything that could go wrong is going wrong. And I think it's something that I always have to remember. And that's very topical, very simple, but there's a lot more nuance to it. And ultimately it's about community and collaboration and creating a safe environment where, it's it feels like you're supporting each other throughout the whole process.
Sounds like too the idea of, I've heard other people say, we're not doctors and nurses here. We don't have to be so stressed out. We don't have to be biting each other's heads off. Yes, we're losing daylight. Yes, there's sometimes millions of dollars at stake, but I like to say too, we're living our dreams. Remember that, right? This is our childhood. This is what we from a little kid thought, wow, could we play? Could we tell stories for a living? That's a beautiful thing. And I want to talk just a brag on you, Tracy. My good friend Dove, who I'm staying with, was one of the actors in her most recent feature, said he had an amazing time, and he said, he didn't tell me the specifics, he said there was a day where everything went exploded and it was super hard, and he said he watched you and the way you handled it under pressure, he said, was so inspiring. And to hear that from an actor about a director, that, yeah, huge flowers on that. That's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And maybe you want to talk about what that was later. Willie, what about you? What would be Sundance 3 times? Tell us that point of view and what that TED Talk is about, because that's huge.
I will in 1 second. Somebody said they're watching on YouTube. They could see us, but they can't hear us. So I don't know if that's something that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Okay. Tyler, did you hear that? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So really the key into getting to Sundance, I think I was like, man, there's so many things I can talk about. And then because my hair is growing out a bit, I'm like, I want to wear a hat today. And then I found this hat, the fuck what people think hat. And I'm like, I'm wearing this because I really, most of my work for the past 20 years, I've done many other projects, but the ones that have been award-winning have been films about my family, my Puerto Rican American family, who actually, because I was born in New York City but raised in North Carolina, and I was raised in a trailer in my grandmother's backyard. And through me being very intellectual and into the arts, I played violin when I was in 5th grade all through high school. I managed to get a scholarship, so I went to places that society kind of said wasn't really for me, and that included NYU. And at NYU, I took a documentary production class. And I remember the teacher told us to write a one-pager on a potential 10-page treatment of a documentary we wanted to pursue. And I put that the documentary that I wanted to pursue was going to be one about my family. And she writes something saying, "See me after class." And I was always a good kid and never got any bad grades or anything. And then I was like, "Hey, what's wrong?" She's like, "I don't like your idea. Documentaries about people's families aren't interesting. And trust me, no one is going to want to watch a film about your family." I'll never forget the way this woman looked at me with her finger like that. And I remember standing at a crossroads feeling like I should probably do what the teacher wants because I really want an A, or I can stand up for myself, for my family, and for marginalized and underrepresented communities. And that's what I did. I told her hey, you don't know my family, and if I want to do this project, I'm going to do this no matter what. And she says, all right, I can't give you an A for the class. I passed the class with a B+, whatever, spite. But since then, I had 2 shorts at Sundance in 2017 and 2022 that both featured miniature sets, miniature characters. The first one, Victor and Iselina, is about my grandparents, Victor and Iselina. And the second one was about my parents, who go by the nickname Chili and Millie. So that got into Sundance, and then that culminated in They Dream, a feature which, as you mentioned, was at Sundance. So I was very much living the dream, and it really all stood with me really realizing that sometimes these people that we put in positions of power, who are mentors, it's okay to push back when you feel that it's an important story to tell, because at the end of the day, fuck what people think.
That's right. Yeah.
And that philosophy has worked out for you, William. I love that. If you're watching us online, I'll do another really quick introduction. Welcome to BraveMaker LA. It is very hot in here. And I wanted to say, if somebody wants to look at that thermostat, I just realized, see if we can kick it, I don't know, do something. It's on the wall right there. See if you can make it, I don't know, if there's air in here, I don't know, but play with that. Thank you so much. And if there anybody else wants to try to get the screen down while you're at it, just kidding. No, it's fine. This is typical filmmaking life. Things go wrong. It's hot. The sound isn't on. It's very, very typical. This is what I expect when I'm making something. Things are just not going to go right. So Londi, in that way, you have this nonprofit. You have a school. You have a workbook that we're going to talk. Did you bring any today?
They didn't come in.
Okay. She's got a feature film workbook. If you want to make a feature film from beginning to end, the preparation, all this cool stuff, what you're talking about. So what's your TED Talk be about? Juggling a lot of plates, doing a lot of things.
My gosh. You know what? So forgive me if my voice goes in and out because I'm getting over a cold. So I'm glad we have these microphones because I sound very deep and sexy right now.
Podcast voice.
Yeah,
I like it.
I got my deep podcast voice going on. But, I totally love what they said. And I love what you said in regards to, going for what you believe in and not letting anyone stop you. I often tell my students that other people's opinions of you is none of your business, right? You are here to tell your stories. And what a gift. What a gift it is to be able to make a movie, right? And I think even when I was on the podcast with you, we talked about that because there was something about your grandmother you were passionate about and you were getting some pushback. And it's our stories are important and they're beautiful and they need to be told. And if you are the one blessed with the gift to tell them, then why not? Why not do that? And for me, I just love the beauty of visual storytelling. I like how I can change the perspective of how you might view a character in one of my projects just by how I light them. You know what I mean? They don't even have to say nothing. I can make them look like the good guy or the bad guy, depending if I do side lighting, if I do, you know what I mean? It just really depends. And so I love that part of filmmaking and why I encourage people to tell their stories. It doesn't matter what it's about. It doesn't matter if you're getting pushback. The important thing is it comes from you, and so it's going to be beautiful. You do have to find your audience, though, so that you can make some money, okay? Because we're not about making movies and not making money. But all of that comes in part of the developmental stages, and so for me, my TED Talk would be tell your story and find your niche audience so that you can be successful as you tell your stories.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that because that has to do with the business stuff too. We all the art. We were drawn to the art. We were drawn to the imagination of it all. But then it's like, okay, now how am I going to make a living? How am I going to put my kids through college? And with our BraveMaker work too, we really prioritize and want to elevate mental health. We believe this is actually practicing good mental health, is feeding your creative soul, meeting new people in a non-performative environment. Like I said, when we first came in here, don't feel like you have to be anybody but yourself. Don't compare and compete, right? We all are here in community. We want community to always be more important than the competition. So that mental health piece, while trying to make a living, I'm really feeling right now with the world, things that are happening. I mean, yesterday I opened up my news and I was like, oh, there's a potential drone threat, not the camera kind that you want people like filming you, but the bomb kind. So we're holding these kind of things outside of the fact that our industry is rapidly changing. But I hear you saying the audience thing. I've been perking up to this a lot. You, when I first met you, you really opened my eyes because you had like a very specific audience that you're going after, and that's where the money is. So let's talk about this. How do we define our audience? How do you define your audience? What are some reasons why that is important if you want to make money?
Yes, so I feel like most filmmakers skip this part. We spend so much time cultivating our projects, going into the production, and we think about distribution and all of that last, but we forget that our film is a product, and a product has to be marketable to a consumer. That's why it's show business. And when you remove and I get it, you put your blood, your sweat, your tears, you cried, you stayed up all night, you dealt with nonsense. It's hot, the set, the location, you lost it, you only had 2 hours. So we have all that emotion attached to it. But we do at some point have to separate that compassion and understand that it is a product. And so how do products get marketed to us, right? Your favorite thing that you like to watch, what made you buy, or what that you like to wear, what made you buy it, right? Your favorite face cream or your watch or your tennis shoes, what got you excited about it? Did TikTok make you do it? Like, how are you being marketed to? So you kind of have to deconstruct that so you can understand how to market to your audience. And a lot of times we're too vague about who our target audience is. We'll say, oh, my target audience for my film is, I don't know, women between the ages of 25 and 35 who like horror. But where do they consume content? Do they watch it on YouTube? Do they go to film festivals? Do they mostly watch on their phone? Do they like Peacock? Where do they like to eat? Where do they like to shop? Do they wear yoga pants all day? Like, being as specific as possible. Like, I make my students create an audience persona for their audience. So give it a name. Her name is Tamika. She likes to eat a drink at Starbucks. She's a pescatarian when she feel like it. Like, be that specific, because then you know how to create products that are tied to the theme of your movie, and you can market to them. And the filmmakers who are starting to do this are having massive success outside of the studio. We just heard, I don't know if you guys saw about Mark Fishbach. He goes by Markiplier, right? He's a gamer who self-financed this film, self-distributed this film, Iron Lung, got it into theaters. His audience demanded it be in theaters, and it expanded. He almost beat out Disney's Send Help, which all of a sudden he fell off the charts, right? And people were like, conspiracy. But he made $25 million on his own. And to date, I think he's at 50 million, and he don't owe nobody nothing because he self-did it. But he took the time to really cultivate his audience, which is a marathon, not a sprint. For most of us, we're in a hurry to make our films. I always tell my students, I'm like, okay, when are you planning production? It's March and we shooting in April. Why? Why are you shooting in April? What, is the earth gonna fall apart if you don't make this film? If you have to make this film next month? So really taking your time in the developmental stages and thinking about, who is my audience? Who am I making this movie for outside of just you? And trust, there is a niche for everything, right? People watch horror movies just because maybe they secretly think about this, my day was horrible, instead of punching a punching bag, I just need to watch a horror movie to release. No, they watch a comedy because they could just laugh about their crazy day. There is an audience for everything, and it's up to you as the filmmaker to find that so that you can make money with your project.
Okay, so the niche thing. Throw out something, because you, with your film, you have a very niche audience. I had a conversation, we have a thing every Monday, by the way, and I'll send you an email about it. You can attend it for free if you'd like. It's a community we do on Zoom every Monday. I had Vanishing Angles VP of Sales and Distribution. His name is Ben Weisman. And he said, you know who's more important than your cast and crew? Your audience. Like, do you know your audience, and are you building a relationship with them? Yes. If you want to be a director, if you want to be a filmmaker or writer, you have to be thinking about them even before the cast and crew. It kind of is like mind-boggling a little bit. He's like, they're the ones who are going to show up, and sometimes show up multiple times to watch your film, like the Iron Lung. They're the ones who are saying, when's your next one? So building that relationship and social media is such a part of it. But can you talk a little bit about, and then, I'd love for you two to also be thinking about who would you say is your defined audience? But talk about the film that you made that has these health impacts.
Yes, so I definitely Forrest Gump my way through figuring this out. Like, I didn't know what I didn't know when I started, because I too thought, my target audience, my film is called The Silent Killer, Prostate Cancer in the African American Community. And so I assumed my target audience was men because it's about Black men and prostate cancer. Clearly that's my target audience, but no, because men don't want to talk about their prostates. So why would they come see a movie about that? That was not my target audience. My target audience was actually women between the ages of about 40 to about 65. And that's because women get men to go to the doctor. And so once I understood that, then the floodgates opened. And here's the beauty about understanding your target audience. My film actually came out in 2017, and it's still in demand. So even though I do have distribution, I make more money licensing my film to health organizations, pharmaceutical companies, colleges use it as teaching tools, physicians use it as teaching tools. I make way more money doing that. And then sometimes they want me to come and speak, and they want to hear, why did I do it? What made me, inspired me to do the film? And so I think a lot of filmmakers are sleeping on this aspect. To your point, when you know your target audience, they will continue to purchase and obtain your film. To me, it's no different than Rocky Horror Picture Show. That movie came out how many years ago? Exactly. And people will still come flood theaters with all their little props to do all the prompts. When you know your target audience, you can continue to market to them, and they will eat it up because they love the product that you have, and they will support it.
And I think filmmakers too, thinking about the other revenue streams when you make a movie. Oh, now you're saying I can be a guest speaker at your college, and my fee is blah, 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 blah. So making money for you because you're the product too. Right. Now, Tracy, you have very specific films. These are thriller type movies, action oriented, always with a female lead. 6 features, like dang, that's amazing. Can you talk about that? Because you've also branded yourself as a director who's doing this and being sought after for that.
Oh boy, okay, where to start? When it comes, the 6 films he mentioned, they were, my sort of journey so far as a filmmaker has been more, I haven't done self-distribution, and I'm sitting here going I need a notepad, because
you can watch the recording after.
Yeah, because there's so many ways into how all of our journeys are look different, and so mine, I wasn't self-funding my films outside of Kickstarter in college. I was in a position, the Cliff Note versions, where I spent 10 years as a production designer and got into the union and started doing really big budget films, over 30 features as a designer. And I sort of met people along the way that ultimately gave me my opportunity that led to my first feature in 2021, which was a $2 million union rom-com, but that already had distribution in place. So I'm coming from a very different perspective in that my films already have had distribution in place before I was brought on. They were all more like work for hire films. So, I'm sitting from a place now where there's things that more personal stories that I'm really interested, that I really want to share. But there's this question, which is we want to make a living doing what we love. And sometimes it's yes, the work for hire jobs, those 6 features, those have all been an incredible blessing, and I'm so grateful. But those were all very much, there was a script I had, very much a collaboration. But the studio knows their audience. So you might make the film in pre-production or development, production, and post-production, but then the studio then markets their film, and I have nothing to do with that. I don't give notes on the trailer. I don't give notes on the poster art. their marketing team knows what their audience wants, even down to like the name of the movie, right? Most of the time these movie titles changes 1 or 2 times, and most of the time they're titles that I prefer, but it is like they know their audience, so it's like coming at it from like an independent perspective is so interesting to think about now. Like, how do you build your audience? And it's all looking at like the kinds of stories you want to tell. So my way into it now is very much like looking at the kinds of stories I want to watch as a viewer, and it's all female-led, female protagonists that deal with themes of grief, sisterhood, complex family, messy family. I come from a large family, so I'm looking forward to like developing more of that independent side of like finding the audience. But yeah, it's a totally different world.
What you and your work surface for me is the idea of how you tell your story as a filmmaker, like your branding, which some people don't like that word, but I love it. I mean, your brand, like that's how people think of you. When I think about you, you're always wearing your hat, right? You're this cool girl. If you look at all of the film posters, they all have a certain vibe to it. You know the type of film that Tracy Hayes is going to direct. And if you're a writer out there or a producer or a financier, when you know Tracy's brand, you're going to be thinking and putting her in front of the people, in front of the studios, as well as if you're an actor. By the way, I love doing stuff like this. How many of you are actors in this room? Raise your hand. Okay, look around real quick. These actors, are wanting to be cast. And so knowing Tracy, following up with Tracy in not a sweaty way. I mean, you could be sweaty today because we're in this room, but not in the hungry, weird, hangry way, but building relationships with the people that you want to work with is so important. If you perked up when she was talking about the kind of films that she makes, then follow up with her and start following her on social media, and know like we met through, I forget, through a DMM, was like an email group.
I'm pretty sure, and then I think it was actually through LinkedIn, perhaps.
Okay.
Power of LinkedIn, that's a whole other.
So many things. Again, it's social media, people.
We could talk a lot about it.
We should, because I was just telling Justin, who has a short film out right now, and he's getting ready to do the film circuit. I was like, people are not utilizing social media way, like hard. They're just not. You're not. We're not. I'm not. There are so many things that could be happening if we put time in. Do you want to make a comment about that?
No, I just I don't have TikTok, so I'm a bit behind, guys. But that's okay. And I think
it's okay.
I will
Find
just say,
one.
I will just say, I know that some people, like, it feels like you have to perhaps be outgoing and like networking, and it can feel exhausting. And what's the point? And I just want to make my art. And I don't, I'm not comfortable in rooms. I'm not outgoing. And yet, a lot of actors I know are not like outgoing. They're very shy people, and then they light up on camera, and that's a beautiful thing. But that doesn't mean like your style, like don't do something that doesn't feel organic and authentic to how you see yourself in the world. Like we do have to put ourselves sometimes in places and ask for things and be in uncomfortable positions, not when you feel unsafe, but just because you have to take a risk on yourself, because why on earth would anyone else invest, in you if you're not willing to take a chance on yourself? All I like to say is I just think, we're talking about like maybe our perspectives up here about how we brand, see ourselves and market ourselves, but ultimately that might not work for everybody else. So.
Yeah, we have to find what works for us. Your brand is your brand. Nobody else can do that like you do, but we all are designed in a way that is unique to us. We're pieces of art, which is the segue here to Will. If you're watching online, BraveMaker LA here, March 12th, talking with 3 different directors. Will, your film, They Dream, no space, has a very specific story that it's telling in such a unique way, and you're using animation and stop motion and art and documentary and doing it. And I mean, hopefully it's going to be at the BraveMaker Film Festival in July, so you can come up and see it.
I believe it will.
Yeah. But your audience, I feel, was really primed for me. I was watching it right around the time, right before the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl brought a lot of conversations happening in the country, a lot of conversations about what makes an American. And I watched your film during that time. I was like, oh my gosh, this was like a piece of resistance to me. So talk about your audience and who you're making films for and how that works out for you as a documentary filmmaker.
Yeah, for me, it all began with this feeling of growing up in the 90s, putting on TV as a Puerto Rican, the only Latinos I saw on TV, if they were men, they were gang members or drug dealers. If they were women, they were house cleaners or bimbos. And so I remember just feeling like there's something lacking. Like, where's the quirky, artsy person that I am? I don't see myself being represented. And then again, having that being reinforced by my professor, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to be that person that another younger me could look up to, that tells these stories about marginalized people, because I realized very early on that like there's lots of marginalization going on. There's my mother is diabetic. Sorry, my father was a diabetic with kidney failure. My mother is disabled. I'm also bisexual, so there's a lot of like feeling of not being represented in the mainstream audience. And so moving on beyond that, when I went to college, I also noticed something that was both good and bad, and it's the fact that editing software became really cheap and super easy to get into editing, and cameras also became super cheap. So on one end, it's like, hey, more people can make their films, but on the other hand, more people can make their films, and so there's more competition. So what am I going to do to stand out? And so it was almost at that like convergence of what maybe it's almost like my ikigai, what I'm good at, what I love doing, what the world needs, and what I can get paid for. And I found over time, it's like, hey, like there's one thing I could do, and that is really looking at what everyone else is doing and trying to do the opposite, because I didn't want to do something that was competing. I'm like, I'm going to try doing something that's so out there that, and this is what I'm learning from like hearing you two. I'm like, I don't really know how to approach studios. My funding has come through grants I've received I'm a 2018 Guggenheim Fellow, 2021 Creative Capital awardee, and then public media has really saved my ass like financially. So working not just on this project, but other projects like Black Public Media also funded a project. I'm not Black, I don't identify as Black, but did a project about Black barbershop culture that was animated. So everything I do is really like, I'm gonna do something that has the heart and the soul. We worked with real Black barbers, we got their voices and we later animated them using motion capture. In Daydream, my mother becomes an active participant in the film alongside me as we work as I introduce her to various forms of animation to preserve the stories of people in my family who are no longer with us. So this person, my mother, like is rotoscope, she acts in it, and so I think that's what helped me, get the jury award and get funding, because it was like a snowball effect from getting a grant of $50,000 from Creative Capital to raising so much money through public media and other nonprofits taking this chance. And so I just tell people, like, really, it's what is that idea that keeps you awake at night that you can't really do, that you feel like your soul is like not complete until you start embarking on, and knowing that every day is like a checklist, like it's like climbing a mountain. You have to, it takes a long time to get there. And this film took me 5 years to complete. A lot of hard work, but every day I had the checklist, I was checking it off, and here I am, in Sundance, and about to, we've already gotten to like 20 festivals so far this year, and there's many more, like every other day. We actually just heard that a really powerful industry player wants to come on board as an EP. It's not finalized, so I can't say this just yet, but it's really making the work when no one sees you making it, knowing that like the more heart and soul that you put into it, the questions of the target audience, I think that comes along as well, because my film is super autobiographical, and so the more truth you can shower with it, not just truth, but you're speaking of Bad Bunny, and I believe he had, what was it, that saying, like something about love is greater than hate or something. It sounds cliche, but it is the fact, and my film resonates with love. And I think the biggest thing I walk away with is knowing that I've had throughout the years people, Black people, white, Jewish, Arabic, Asian, whatever, come up to me saying, oh my God, your grandpa, because I had a series on HBO about 10 years ago that had little 3D printed figures of my grandfather. People coming up or messaging me on social media saying, oh my God, your grandpa reminds me of my grandpa. And there's something there that like has pushed me to really know that I'm like the cultural carrier, of legacy of these stories that are gonna get lost unless I preserve that. And through that, I'm trying to do that more with people, and also trying to see what I can do to get into more fictional stuff too. A lot of ideas happening, but yeah, really it's the more authentic and more authenticity I lean into, as well as the craft is important, doing things what people are not doing. That's what I think will make you stand out in this crowd of people that are trying for a little bit of like sameness, I would say.
Okay, so beautiful thing too about all three of you. All different responses, right? All different ways to go about telling your stories and to finding funding and to getting out in distribution, which means like for us, that's the beautiful thing about the arts and about the film world is that there's no right way to do it, right? We're all trying to figure it out and all these new things that are coming out too. I do want to talk about some practical things. I want to talk about fundraising stuff. I want to talk about working with cast and crew. I want to talk about problem solving. I have 2 features in post and I'm learning some things right now that have been really, really challenging. But I want to take a moment. Are there any comments or questions even now, things that are standing out? You can say your name. Keep it short and sweet, okay? So say your name and what your question is, or if you have an observation or something that's lingering from what they said.
Thank you. My name is Cricket. I love what everyone has said. I'm going to pick your brains at the mixer. I want to ask you if you ever went back to your crappy professor and said, I told you so.
Yes.
The question is, did William go back to his crappy professor and say, I told you so?
I feel like I get that question a lot, and I'm like, that should be the topic of my next documentary. I think I also had a film 15 years ago, my first, the documentary she did not want me to make, which I did make, and I was like, oh, just let you know, I got into these festivals, mic drop, and she was like, I never told you it was going to be a bad idea, and I'm like, girl, you certainly did. I was there, it's in my soul, and it gave me that push, that impetus for me to do my thing.
It reminds me when Michael B. Jordan's high school bully came into one of his. Remember that? And it went viral. He was like, girl, you bullied me. What are you talking about? Yeah. Oh, gosh. Don't be that person. Any other questions or comments so far? Just want to make sure we are engaging and making space. Okay, cool. Let's talk about some of the practical stuff. So, working with your cast and crew and funding and when things go wrong. I like the question. What have you learned when things have gone wrong? So I'll just start. I have 2 different features and they're 2 different budget ranges. I did one for $20,000 with BraveMaker. We have a nonprofit academy school that we do. We did it in 5 days, horror film. And then I've got this biopic feature that is around $350,000 and growing right now. And that took us 30 days. So 2 different features all in 2025. But one thing that I'm learning is that you think you would know these things by now, but the communication pieces of who is doing what in post and how things are working. I had a great DP, great relationship. We shot mostly nights, as horrors do, starting around 5 or 6 and going till 3 or 4 in the morning. Things get a little wiggly at 3 or 4 in the morning. People, even when you have slept during the day, just things get a little gnarly. Going through footage, we had hard drive backups. I had an assistant editor who was doing all the things, did a whole here's all the sheets, here's all the cataloging, great, then sends it off to the editor. We shot in October, then it's Christmas and all these things. January hits and the editor's like, oh, we're missing 4 different scenes. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm in the film too, by the way. And my hair is dyed crazy platinum blonde in the film. And guess which ones are missing? Me, as a crazy platinum blonde. I was like, oh, well, for sure, we backed these up. I went to the DP. He's like, oh, I actually deleted all the files already. I was like, when did you do that? He's like, oh, 45 days. That's my typical thing. I was like, I had no idea that you did that. He's like, dude, I should have told you. I'm so sorry. So, okay, we get to reshoot, but now I got to re-dye my friggin' hair and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, what? Obviously, what we should have done is, before we go into holidays, we should have did all that cataloging, we should have did all that checking, but it was like, we just trusted the process. And then it was like, if you're gonna delete files, you gotta tell people that's your process, because we probably could have found it on there. So I'm hurting right now. I'm like, I liked my blonde hair when it grew out the 3rd month, but the 1st month when it was all blonde, so I'm gonna be doing reshoots. I will be popping up in your social media feeds, platinum again. But that could have been avoided, right? That could have been avoided with some communication. That could have been avoided with the typical backup stuff. And maybe we should have had 1 extra hard drive. Somehow things got lost along the way. What are some things that have gone wrong that you have learned practically, whether it comes fundraising or in post-production or casting? I love actor stories as well, how you find actors, how you work with actors as a director.
Where do we begin?
Uh-huh.
I know, I was thinking that. I was like...
You want to share that Dove story that he was sharing?
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, I say it's fun, but it wasn't when we were filming. I mean, every movie has challenges. I mean, every movie I've worked on, even when I was designing them, there was a problem. And I think we're all creative problem solvers. We're all, and that's sort of I joke, it's like our job titles, problem solver. The film, that you mentioned, I mean, it wasn't unlike any other film, but I've had, problems, but it was 3 o'clock in the morning. It's funny, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I hear of a walkie and my picture car ready, and they're like, we don't know where the picture car is, and I'm like, they're just pulling a prank, it's late. I took one look at our AD and I knew that the vehicle that we needed to shoot in 10 minutes was not on the premise. So it turns out the picture car company dropped the picture car at the wrong location, which was 2 hours away from where we were filming, and we had to reimagine the scene not in this picture vehicle. So we have 20 minutes. 20 minutes to finish our day, and everyone's looking at me, and I just found this news out, and we're all exhausted. It's the end of our end of our week. And everyone's like, well, what are we going to do? I mean, the car was written in the scene, or the car was written, like they were in the car. And I was like, and they're like, okay, what are we going to do? And I said, can I just give me 2 minutes? Everyone's like, okay, we're ready. And I'm like, I walked away. I was like, I just need a minute to think and like compose myself, because it feels like in the moment, like your world's crumbling. But I guarantee you the audience is going to watch the movie and have no idea that was the case. And so I walked away and I was like, okay, I took a deep breath. And I was like, how can we tell this story? And I just was watching, we were doing color actually just an hour ago. And I was watching the scene and I was like, you know what? I think it's better they weren't in the car, honestly. And in the moment it was very stressful. And I think the more you're on set and the more you're put in these kinds of what seems stressful situations, I think it's helpful because, you can either let it eat you up and you can throw a tantrum, you can get upset, and I think the crew is really looking to you as a leader, and you're setting the tone. And so, I would hope my crew has never seen me get upset or stressed. I walk away, I take a moment, I take a deep breath, we joke about it, and then the same picture car that I was really wanting to use it because it was 80s and period, broke down twice while we were filming second. So we lost the whole day of filming because of this picture car that I wanted. That was great, but it's a 90s Jeep. And it was just like, I could either choose to be angry in that moment, and then I was just laughing about it with my producers, and we all went out to dinner instead of shooting, so we lost the day of filming. And I'm like, how you show up every day, what you do have in your control, because so much of what we do is out of our control. It's how you show up and how you choose to react to circumstances. And people will remember that, and they'll either bring you back or they won't bring you back. And there's a reason. And a lot of it is how you respond in those really what seem dire circumstances.
At 3 or 4 in the morning. Yes. Yeah. Good for you. That's dope. I love that. Any other stories come to mind?
I have a lot. So I'm trying to think where to begin. I've had the pushy executive producer who just kept casting and sending people to set, and we had to figure out ways to put cameos with them. And it was like, she gave a lot of money, so we had to do what she wanted.
That's an interesting conversation. It's like the strings that come with financing.
Yes.
And who needs to be cast or who needs to be on the set. Yep.
And every one of her family members, and not all of them could act, had to have cameos, right? So I had that happen. I've had my very first project, I learned not to let actors take their clothes home because
they forget them the next day.
Oh my gosh, we were shooting in Atlanta, and I had our lead actor, he's a police officer, and he was doing both acting and, so he was tired. He got his days mixed up and brought the wrong outfit. And we're shooting downtown Atlanta at a place that we rented the venue, and he lived like an hour away, and it was rush hour traffic time. So I had to pivot. I was very proud of I pivoted a lot working on that first project. I think that's what made me scrappy, but we had to figure out, we can't shoot the scene. He doesn't have the right clothes at all. So we had to talk to the venue owner, see if we could switch days, and okay, where else downtown are we shooting? Let's see if we can get that other location and see if they'll let us come even though we're not scheduled. Like, we figured it out. No one knows, It's that same project. We had this beautiful restaurant we were shooting in College Park, and we only had a short window to shoot because it opens for lunch and dinner. So the owner said he'd be there at 6 to let us in, and he showed up at 10. And we had to be out of there. So I was like, okay, what can we cut? And not mess it up? What will still make sense? And then I gave him a cameo because he let us shoot in his restaurant. But, we're battling with the cooking and clanging for real because they're prepping for lunch and dinner. And then we realized, this is a very old building, so we can't plug anything in because we're going to kill all the power. And so we had a backup generator. I feel like all of these things, it's what makes us scrappy, though. As when you can handle all these challenges as an indie filmmaker, I hope when you get to her level working at the studio, you can do things like, do we really need a picture car? Do we? You know what I mean? It really helps you because that is pressure. And to your point, you set the example of how people behave on set. And I love that you said that because when you don't freak out, the rest of the crew doesn't freak out. And I've literally worked on sets because I feel like I've held a lot of different positions. I've worked as a first AD a lot, and I've seen when the director freaks out, that trickle-down effect where everyone has an attitude. And so I think it's really important. You can have your freak out moment. Usually I call someone, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening, right? And then I was like, okay, I'm good now. Let me go back. All right, guys, here's what we're gonna do. Or does anyone have suggestions? Bring me problems, not solutions. So how can we get through this? Any ideas? Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause it is a collaborative effort. So my core team people, okay, how can we do that? Even when I've worked as a first AD, I'm not listening to all the issues. I get that you're upset as the DP because you thought you were gonna have more time with lighting that set. But what can we do to support the director so that you can light it in time and the director can get their vision, right? Like, that's how you squash it. Instead of, okay, I get it, you're mad. Like, I feel you, I understand, I hear what you're saying, right? But our job is to support the director. So what do we need? How can we problem solve for this? I'm leaning on you and your expertise. Mm-hmm. That's usually how I try to kill it because I agree with you. We're not curing cancer, we're making films. So why have a heart attack? Mm-hmm. What can we do to make this beautiful project and get it done even as the challenges occur?
Londi, I love the idea of the hive mind. Sometimes we're so stressed and we're rushing, we don't think about that. Or maybe there's ego too, that maybe we're afraid someone might have a better idea. But if we all are on a project, we all want this to succeed. Why not say, even give some boundaries? All right, y'all, we have 30 minutes and we have the car's not here. Best idea. Let's toss them out. Be short and sweet. Because sometimes people start talking like, you're wasting my time with that. Okay, no. And don't take it personally. Right? I just did a thing last night where we had an improv session with our actors, and one of the actors was so great. She was advocating for herself. She was like, I'm super overwhelmed and overstimulated in this. Can I bow out? I was like, yes, totally. Then she's like, well, actually, can you teach a different way how to do this scenario you're talking? And I was like, yeah. So I did it. But afterward, I wished I would have said, does anybody else, because I've been talking and teaching this moment, does anybody else from an actor perspective want to chime in? I wish I would have done that, because I think that does also give people ownership on a set when they feel like, oh, you're not just the hierarchy at the top of the ladder, we're all contributing. So that's a really good point. You want to add anything over there, William?
I just want to add that you two stress me out hearing your stories. My God, that's a lot. That's why I sort of shy away from fiction. I have done short films in the past that, there's like, you don't know what to predict on set. You have to be resourceful. But when it comes to documentary, I think what's interesting is that you can't predict. There is no script to go along. And so if something bad happens, that could be part of the project itself, And there's
Kind of want that sometimes.
sometimes, yeah, a little bit of spice and drama. But like in my film, I had mentioned the first half of it is me creating these animated vignettes about people in my family who we later find out pass away. And then I had the idea, like, what if I were to ask my mom to become part of this film? And I'm like, should I say, hey, Mom, tomorrow I'm going to ask you like to be part of the film? But I'm like, no, she won't give a reaction that's like authentic. I should like ask her on camera. So I was prepared that she may be like, oh, I don't want to do this, I'm uncomfortable. And then like that was like the premise of my film, like how do I turn you into an active participant? So it's really having to deal with the fact that the subject doesn't have, a script to follow. You just have this idea, and you sort of can go into those nuances. So that's what interests me more, is the nuances, and knowing that for my film, a lot of it was animation. So the worst things I encountered doing They Dream was, oh, the shipment of props isn't coming today, it's coming tomorrow, meaning I can't shoot today, so I'm going to do something else. I'm going to paint these other props or finalize these other things. And so I think that reduced some levels of stress, but the biggest stressor was the fact that, Hollywood isn't really supporting these types of personal projects, these more artistic projects. And I'm very, very thankful to have gotten funding from public media, from Latino Public Broadcasting and ITVS, like literally a few months before this fucking president of ours pulled funding from public media. You think about one day in this war that's happening in Iran, and that's literally 1 year of funding for public media, or funding for the arts, or funding for people with disabilities, funding for healthcare, and knowing that this country doesn't really believe in these stories, that we have this Hollywood model, and I am trying to open up to them, but I do wish Hollywood would take more chances on projects that are a bit more in the art realm, because there's certain truths there. And the jury award I won at Sundance was for creative expression. And again, I was this little kid growing up in the trailer who would draw every day, write plays, even though I was an only child, so I was doing all the parts myself, and just drawing Spider-Man all the time. And that really developed me into this person who was rejected a lot. And that's one thing I definitely want to say before this ends, is like, don't view me as someone who got into Sundance, someone who's like the king of getting all these things. I get rejected from just about everything I apply for. And that's the name of the game, is to be able, I know someone who's rejected from one grant, and they're an amazing artist, like, I'm never gonna apply to grants again, fuck these grants. And I'm like, that's not the way you need to be. You need to get resiliency. I got into Sundance, but I was rejected from South by Southwest, rejected from international film festivals in Denmark, Switzerland, Greece. Like, I am a case study in rejection. And sometimes they happen on set, but usually for me it's like knowing I'm going to apply for that grant and these festivals, and knowing that, hey, it's like a roll of the dice, but you will find the Sundances who will believe in your work. Lucky for me, 3 times, but beyond that, the public media companies that funded my work multiple times, like LPB, ITVS only came on board for this project. But fostering those relationships and knowing that I'm where I am because I never stopped trying to give a platform for not just my voice, but for other people, and knowing that these projects heal me. And I think that's why people fund them, because it also heals the viewer as well. At least that's what I hope. I mean, hope you felt healed when you saw the film.
Yeah, I loved it.
Can I add one
Please,
thing to that?
please.
I love that you said that, because I tell my students, which those are 2 of my students right there, so they can attest to what I'm about to say. I tell them, you treat no like a comma, not a period. So the success I've had with my documentary, the company that has flown me all over, and they've done screenings in New York and all these places, and twice for the Congressional Black Caucus, they told me no 3 times. They just kept telling me no, and I just kept sending them stuff. I'm like, I know my movie is important, and you're sleeping on an opportunity. And because of me, they started something called the Black Film Series, because unfortunately Black men die of prostate cancer at younger ages and more aggressive forms of disease. So they were looking for a conduit to connect with these men, but they didn't know how to do it, yet they keep telling me no. So I was like, look, you missing something right here. And they were like, oh my goodness, finally, they agreed. And so then they got 2 other documentary filmmakers. Well, one did a narrative film about prostate cancer, but they got 2 others, and they started touring the films but it was because I was persistent and I didn't take no as an answer. So no's are commas, okay? Sometimes no means just not right now. Sometimes no actually means you ain't ready. And I know we don't want to hear that because we think, but it's so good and we did all this work, but you haven't done the business side to make you marketable so that they can do all these things. So sometimes you have to assess that, remove your emotion, because at first I was offended too. Do you know how long I worked on this movie? What do you mean no? You know what I mean? But then I had to step back and say, okay, that's fine. I'm going to reach out to these other 10, 15 national nonprofits, and I'm going to see what I can do. But I'm going to come back and share with you what our progress is. So here's where the movie is now. Here's what we've done thus far. We're actually having a screening here. You should come. And they finally came to the screening we had at LA Film School, and that's what got the ball rolling.
Yeah, you paved your own way too. You braved your own way, we could say. And the no's, sometimes I have to reframe this too, because I'm on the other side. With BraveMaker, we have a film festival, and in a month and a half, we will be selecting a number of those films. And I try not to use the word rejection, because the reality is, I'm not really rejecting them. I'm just not selecting them. I'm saying no, because I can't take all of them. And some of them do need to get a no, because the sound sucks, you know what I mean? And they're not ready. And so that also, if we look at that, if we could embrace that, because you just say the same thing. You press through it. You're like, okay, I keep going, I move, I keep submitting myself, I keep finding the people who are gonna say yes. And my situation, I was like, I'm just gonna create my own friggin' festival, because if I can't get into that one, I'll just do my own, you know? So I think that is a part of the creative work that we have to figure out what works for us. Questions or comments or things that are lingering for you in the room. Does anybody want to raise their hand, keep it short and sweet, say your name and make a comment or a question? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Christina, and I have a question, I guess, for you, Tony, or anybody that wants to share. You said you were part of your project, and how do you work as a director? How do you split your focus?
You mean I was talking about being an actor in my project? Yeah, I was not the lead in it. I think that would be something I don't know if I would want to do. I was a supporting role in the film, because it does take a literal all right, I have to be in the moment here and I can't direct. But if you have good collaborators, a producer who can watch the monitor and someone that you trust, that has worked for me as someone who's the hyphenate actor, writer, director. And the reason why I was doing that is because I need to give myself opportunities. So I'm not waiting for someone else to cast me. I am writing things for myself. And I like being a supporting role. I like playing the coked out platinum blonde brother who's wasting his family inheritance or whatever it was. So that for me has been something I have had to do, otherwise I'd be waiting around not acting. I became a filmmaker, I became a director because I went to Sundance actually, and I saw people doing it and telling me, you can do it too, just do it, stop waiting around. So yeah.
I would love to add to that. So I acted and directed a horror short with my family during COVID. It was like a project we did at our nonprofit. We all had to make these movies, and you couldn't use people outside of your family, right? Or if you were, you had to use Zoom or whatever. And so what worked for me in doing that is pre-production. I had everything so planned out, especially because my family members were my crew, and so I was like teaching, directing, and acting, right? And so I had to be as organized as possible to make it easy for them to be the cinematographer and to be, so definitely I would say pre-production, you have to be very, very organized to make it easy for people to step in. The other thing, have a stand-in that is your complexion. That's super important. So I made my sister, who is not an actress at all, be the stand-in. And it helped because then I could walk them through lighting her, right? Lighting me, which we are pretty much the same complexion and close to the same height. I'm a little taller than her, but anyway. But we could, it made it easier so she could stand there and then we could run through it, and then I could go in and then act. And I had in our movie, it's a zombie movie where my significant other turns into a zombie due to COVID. We didn't know about the vaccine yet, y'all. He got the vaccine, it turned him into a zombie. This is before we had the shots. But I had to take him out because he turned into a zombie. And so it was this very weighted emotional scene. So I had to be able to be emotional, and I'm teaching and I'm, acting. So that helped me be able to focus on the acting and then focus on the directing. And then again, like you said, having my brother-in-law was our DP, having him, he understood it because he does AV. So having someone that I could trust who's like, you know what, that performance, you might want to stand right here and do. And I was like, oh, thank you. You know what I mean? It helped a little bit, but I was super prepared. So it made it very easy for them to step in and assist me. So I definitely think you need a stand-in that is your height, your melanin, level of melanin, whatever that is, because that's super important for lighting. And then just being as prepared as possible.
Oh.
Can someone tell Lin-Manuel Miranda that I want to be his stand-in?
I think you'd be perfect.
You totally have his aura, dude.
Yeah.
You totally have. That when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, that's great. That's a question right here, Kelly.
As you're building your audience, ahead of time and everything, have you found any good ways or any producers that will focus on that? I think TV often started calling community producers, somebody to focus on that. Have you been able to find a niche of creatives or producers that are good at that part of it? Because often when you're focused on film, you're exhausted by the.
For the YouTube people, the question is, have you found people stepping into these type of roles for audience building, or this new term going around called a community producer, which is to help actually build that?
Yes, there are people who do that because actually it's part of marketing. So usually if you're looking for someone that does that, you'd want someone who has a marketing background. However, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, it is good that you're involved because people buy into you as the director and they don't like it when they feel like they're being sold to. So they want to see you go through the process. And I know this sounds tedious, and I know we were talking about, some people are like, I don't like social media, and I get that, but it's more about just sharing your process is the start. Mark Fishbach, who we were talking about earlier, his success was he shared with his audience that he was making this horror film. That took him a long time. I think he raised like $6 million, but he took them on the journey. So you can hire someone, but you're still going to have to do some of that because they're going to buy into you. But yes, there are producers who do that. It is part of the marketing side. You also want to think about you getting to know your audience so that when you make your next film, they want to buy into that too, right? So you don't want them just only hooked on this film. If you like, for me, I make documentaries, I make horror films. I don't want to just be I really had to step away from just doing documentaries because of course once you do that, then everybody wanted me to do cancer docs, and I was like, I can't do another, like it was emotionally draining because I, went on this journey with these men and it was hard. I was like, I need to blow some shit up or do a romantic comedy now, right? And so, but now, after some time has been removed, I can go back to it. But my audience is interested in all these things. That audience is very different, right? The prostate cancer world is totally different. Yet some of them have crossed over into what else are you doing? Because they're buying into me. So when they buy into you, then it doesn't matter what your product is, they want to consume it. So if you do bring on someone like that, you need to really have a sit down and be clear. And this is really important because I think so many of us, because we don't like it, we just want to hire someone to do it for us. But that's like hiring a business manager to run your business, but have no idea of how they're spending your money, right? And then you're wondering, well, what happened to my money? No, I believe what Oprah said, sign your own checks, okay? I don't care how wealthy you get. So you need to understand how are they doing this, and you need to have a sit down and give them guidelines as to how you want them to work on your projects and how you want to be represented so it's authentic to who you are as an artist.
Yeah, go ahead. Question.
I'm Ryan. My question is, if you guys are getting started now, what are some things that you would do now that you haven't done the last time around?
Question is from Ryan. If you were just getting started now, what would the advice be this time around?
Are you an actor?
No.
A writer? Oh, okay. I would have taken a pitch class. I loved going to film school. I went to Chapman University. I learned a lot, and I got a lot of incredible connections and filmmakers and collaborators that I worked with one of them today, in fact. In terms of, I think, understanding, we're talking about your voice and branding as your audience and all these things, and I think you're always growing and changing, but if I had to give myself advice when I was in my 19, 20 years old, I think it would have been to take a pitch class, learn how to speak about the things I'm most excited about, and get out of my own way and allow myself to work through the things that scare you, I guess. Like, I think it took me a long time to finally go, like, I'm done designing, I'm gonna focus on directing. So I think it's giving yourself permission to take a chance on yourself. I think I would have done that.
By the way, I loved what you said earlier about if you don't take a chance on yourself, why is anyone else going to take a chance on you? You know?
Yeah, and the moment that our minds are so powerful, in the moment that I made that conscious shift is when everything changed.
That's so
for
dope.
me. And it was. I think there's this term that we see a lot, and especially with Oscars next weekend, about like overnight success. And I don't know why I'm going this tangent, but I've been on my mind about, I think I was having a conversation recently about how it's never overnight. Like, there's so many building blocks, and like the filmmaker you are today is not going to be the filmmaker you are tomorrow, and you're the snapshot of where you are now. And I think it's just like, I think there's a lot of like, wow, I got to hurry up, and oh, they're 27, or oh, they're 30 and they have all this success, and like your success doesn't look the same as mine. So I don't know where I was going with that, but just to take a chance on yourself.
And I would say, I think what's important is for you to, I don't know about how you write, but let's say you love doing comedy, try doing a completely different genre. Just keep exercising that part of your brain, because I went to NYU for grad school, but before that I went to Pratt Institute, an art college in Brooklyn, and there that's where I learned compositing, special effects. So I wanted to be like an effects compositor for Pixar. Like, I didn't even want to like write or tell stories. I didn't have the skills to do that. And here I am now, knowing that's sort of where I was, because I was doing so many different projects, and know that like 'cause I've had some projects that I'm like, oh shit, this was really bad. But I learned, maybe, I always try to see the good. Like, through this project, I met this person. This person's now the cinematographer I always work with. Or I realized, like, oh, 9 pages of the script sucks, but this one page stays with me. What is it about this? So honestly, as I said earlier, like, rejection, but also self-rejection, and knowing that you have to fight, as Stephen Pressfield says in his book, The War of Art, is you have to fight against resistance. And every day is exercising that creative part of your brain, no matter what, showing up, doing the work. You may write like 5 hours straight, and you're like, okay, this sucks, but hey, I learned about myself in doing that. So by a month afterward, you're doing things that are like really important. So really is just to know that this is a business, but there's also a craft. There's an artistry here, and you just have to keep going at it. Picasso died in the early 70s, and he was making like 12 paintings a day. Like he was virtuosic every day. Like, and that's sort of what I want, even though I'm not at that level yet. But to have this idea where like every day I can just like go into craft and not have to self-examine. That's something I'm working with too. And I think we all sort of like self-criticize ourselves, like, no, this is shit, why should people listen to that? And it's like, why can't I just create for the sake of creating, and then let things land where they land? So
I think for me, I feel like my journey has helped me be who I am, so I don't know that I would change a lot, but I probably would let go of perfectionism, because perfectionism has definitely trying to make it perfect, and then I'll look at somebody else's stuff who got distribution or got something that I felt like I should have gotten, like, how the heck did they do that, right? And I was like, because it doesn't need to be perfect, right? Now, I'm not saying make something that you're not proud of, but letting go of that need for perfection, I think, slows us down a lot as artists, and recognizing that you're brilliant, right? The artistry that comes out of you is brilliant, so you don't need to focus on perfection, just focus on being authentically yourself.
And honor your journey too. Who knows what tomorrow brings, but like, you're here because of all the decisions you made, so honor and respect that journey, and know that tomorrow you can start again. If today you were like lazy or hit a wall, tomorrow you could go beyond it.
Make crappy stuff. You have to make stuff that just, however, I mean, failure is a weird word. That definition could look so different for a lot of people. But I was thinking about Jessie Buckley is probably going to win the Best Actress on Sunday for Hamnet. But guess what came out last week? The Bride, that everybody panned, that everybody said was a horrible failure that lost millions of dollars. I'm sure she's feeling all sorts of ways, but I'm sure she put both of those films, the energy into both of those characters and gave her all. One got her an Oscar and the other not. In the same 2 weeks of life, it's like that. That to me is the journey that I want to honor too, is I'm gonna make a lot of turds. But I'd rather make a bunch of turds than have talking about it. Like I've met people, I go to Sundance every year or whatever, and I meet the same people talking about the movie, like, weren't you talking about that last year? Okay, I get it. One of my films took 10 years, but have you made anything else? Like, why aren't you making a short? Why aren't you making TikTok sketches? Like, make shit. Stop talking about it and just make it, because you're gonna learn while you do it. And if you're a writer, by the way, any other writers in the room? Okay, cool, look around, yes. Write stuff, and then if you are not a producer or director or filmmaker, DP, find someone who is. Partner with them, build that community and start making things. I remember when I met with you one time, and you were so clear, like, I do not wanna write. I am looking for scripts to direct. Awesome. Know what you're good at and find the people that can partner with you. I hope that helps. All right, we got like 3 more minutes. Any quick question? Or also I'm gonna have final thoughts on just collaboration and finding your people. How do you know who are the right people to work with, your editors, your producers, and how do you know when you have to fire people or cut ties? Anything that comes to mind. This is like lightning round.
I think when you work with, I also see someone has a question back there too. But when you work on like no budget or micro budgets, as I definitely have throughout my life, you're going to get a lot of good people that are passionate, and then on the other end you get some people that are just like terrible and they have bad energy, and it's easy to distance yourself from those people because there's a reason. However, you will get occasionally people that are not good at what they're doing and they do slow down, but they're nice and friendly, and so it's hard to make that like, oh God, what do we do? And so it's having to like navigate that. Yes, you can make hard no's and passes on people, and I've had to like fire some collaborators just because they were disrespectful to me or to the project or to the other people on my team. And as a director and lead producer, you can have that, but also like it's hard when they're friendly and they mean well, but they don't have the necessary skills, and it's trying to maybe find other ways for them to feel appreciated. I've tried acting. I'm not the world's best actor, but I try, and I realize like I should probably pivot. And so it's knowing that like the film world is so beautiful. Like you may be an actor today, and then tomorrow you realize, actually I'm a stronger writer. And so it's be able to take those chances, whether you initiate those projects yourself or you hop on board somebody else's project, is knowing there's a lot of like, I think there's something for anything. Like my mother, like my grandmother, who didn't really speak a lot of English, she would have a hard time doing everything except crafty. She'd be really good at craft services. Get yourself some Latino food. So there's like, I think something for everybody in this, and there's so many different places for people to fit in with their talents.
I would say a lot of times we know when it's not the right people and when we're in our interview process, but we do it anyways.
We don't want to admit it.
And I think you need to pay attention to those red flashing lights in the back of your head. Don't hire a crew member just because they come with all the equipment. Because if they're setting off some red alarms inside of you, but you're like, yeah, but they got everything. Because I know that happens a lot. As any filmmaker's like, man, if I can find a DP that has all this equipment and we don't have to rent stuff, that'd be great. But sometimes that's not the right person. And I would rather have the right person than go through 12 hours or 10 hours of hell just because they had all the equipment. So I really look for those red flags in the interview process. And if I have a lot of filmmakers, like I said, who are my students, and so I'll coach them through, and I'll know, they're like, can you sit in while I'm hiring this crew member? I'm like, sure, and I can see the red flags, and I'll just offer advice and say, I don't think you should hire that person, and I'll state why. I'm like, yeah, but they're great and they believe in the project. Okay. They also kept talking over you, and every time you offered what you wanted to do, they're like, yeah, I like that, but then they moved on. There are clues, and I think hiring the right people that you can continue to make movies with That's what we want, because when you have that crew that you can call on, you can finish each other's sentences, right? They understand how you like to make movies, and so yes, you may come with your lookbook of how you want to light this scene or how you were kind of feeling, but they know you, so they'll add their expertise to your vision, and they're like, I already got you. How do you feel about this? Because I know that's what you like, right? And then you guys can continue to make projects like that, but it starts when you're building your crew, that initial process of listening to your gut. Don't hire people just because they are easy in regards to equipment or they got a low rate.
Yes, all those things. And I would also add to that, like, call up people that have worked with them. I just did this. I just called up I was like, I go into IMDb Pro, which is my best friend, and I'm like, oh, look, they worked with so-and-so. I sent a text message, and I tell you, those bubbles came up right away, and I was like, that could either be a good thing or a bad thing, and it turned out it was a bad thing. And so it was, you know, I always say at least 2 people, and it needs to be someone that worked directly with them, not someone who happened to be on the same movie set that you said hi to, someone you actually interacted with, because I've had circumstances where that did not work out because they ultimately hadn't worked together. So I think our industry is so incredibly small. Every week, and I mean this, every week there's somebody I run into or I meet that knows somebody that I worked with 10 years ago, whatever the case may be, and all it takes, within 10 minutes of doing research of somebody on LinkedIn, oh, look, they were at a job, and then they were at a different job a year later, and then a different job a year later, and then a different job a year later, and I'm like, that's interesting, send a text message, and then my gut was correct. So it's like, I think you have to do a lot of your own vetting. And there's also the flip side of it, which is when you're a work for hire, sometimes the people are already hired. And then you have to, if perhaps you have different communication styles, have to figure out how to work with that person. And so that's a different kind of circumstance. So, and I've dealt with that too, so.
I just want to add one other thing, especially for indie filmmakers. Don't just go by IMDb credits. I'm so glad you brought up LinkedIn. Because I have seen filmmakers hire someone because they worked on this big especially indie. This is specifically for indie filmmakers. I literally had a student who hired this person because they had done all this big budget stuff, but they had never worked on an indie film. That could be the worst. And they made them lose money within the first week of filming because they didn't know how to scale things down. They had only worked at the studio level. And studio filmmaking and indie filmmaking are different beasts. So don't get excited because they worked on a Marvel movie, because that don't mean they know how to work on your little $50,000, romantic comedy, right? Or $100,000 romantic comedy. They may not be able to scale it down. We are scrappy as indie filmmakers. We often have 3 people doing the job of, or let me rephrase that, 2 people doing the job of 5 people, right, at the studio level. So you have to really, yes, I love what she said in regards to call people and ask, but then also ask that question. If you're going with someone who's mostly worked at the studio level, have you ever worked on an indie film before? Don't just get excited because they worked on this big project, because they may be the wrong person for you, especially if it's like your DP or line producer. If they don't know how to do indie films, that could be a nightmare for you in the long run.
What does your hat say again, William?
Fuck what people think.
Yes. And if you are dealing with people who you don't know why they're being a certain way and you are a collaborator, I tend to get in my head and make assumptions like, oh, they're treating me a certain way or they did this, and then I write them off, right? But I'm trying to get better at having conversations, like have the hard conversations. Why did you do that? Why did this happen? How come you're talking to our DP like that? I avoided doing something I should have done for years. I kept getting feedback that a friend of mine was really challenging on some sets. And I'm like, well, he's my friend. I think that's just kind of like, he's in director mode or whatever. And then I started to get for multiple gut checks, I can't stop overriding what people are saying. I need to go to him and talk to him and say this is what's happening. And then I started to see things that I should have dealt with like years ago. And so I want to say, have the hard conversations, fire quickly, because it's like Thanksgiving dinner and uncle says something off color and you're like a little kid hoping your dad will defend you and your dad doesn't. How does that feel? You know, when people don't defend you, but they say, well, they're a friend of mine, that's how they are. No, that's not okay on set. That toxicity will ruin and derail a film experience. And again, we are here, we work too hard not to have fun. So we are not allowing that here, right?
I just want to add, I love that you said have the hard conversations. So I was a first AD for hire, and I got called in last minute to work on this film. Like, they called me on Thursday to come meet the director. We were filming starting Monday. They fired the other first AD, but they didn't let him know that. And so you talk about awkward conversations. I was like, so what am I supposed to do? They were like, oh, well, he can be your yes. No. He can be your second. What? I was like, I can already tell that this is going to be a night. It was horrific. It was horrific. And he was very close friends with the DP, so there was a lot of sabotage going on. And again, I wasn't part of the whole pre-production process. I came on Thursday, we started filming on Monday. So all these things were happening. And I finally just had to pull him aside and just be like, look, I get it. Neither one of us wanted to be in this situation, right? It's not my movie. I was hired to be here. But we're both here now. How can we make this work, right? I need you to not do some of the blocking things that you're doing, right? But you do serve a purpose. He was great with the actors. So if you want to get them out of their trailers, that's what you want to do, I'm cool with that. But I need us to stop having this crazy beef, and I need you to be supportive. And you know what? I don't think he expected me to do that, right? He thought he was just going to do the little sly undercover things that were clearly self-sabotage, like hiding my headphones and dumb stuff. And I wasn't going to say anything.
We're in high school theater.
Right, like, where are my headphones? And then, he's got on a pair of headphones. And why do you have headphones on? I actually need to hear the scene, right? So we had to have that talk, but he wasn't expecting it, so it caught him off guard, and it definitely changed the temperature on set. It really was helpful, because I didn't come attacking him. I was just like, look, this sucks, okay? It sucks for you, it sucks for me, but how can we get through this? We gotta get through this.
If you're avoiding something, it's going to come bite you in the butt. You got to have those hard conversations. All right, I know we saw a question back there, but we will talk and mingle around at the mixer. We have like 15 or 20 minutes left in this building, and then the food starts. Can we give it up for our panelists? Thank you to these directors. Please follow them and find them. And right behind me, come up to the Bay Area. We have our film festival, July 8th through the 12th. We are now a 5-day film festival. We are a nonprofit. Your tickets and all the support that you do helps us continue to do our work. And I'll say this, I never want to underestimate a crowd. Sometimes I'm like, well, we're a nonprofit. I don't want to no pressure in any way, but we are always looking for donors. And last month, I said this, and I said to people, like, we're not quite making our ends meet on the BraveMaker LA yet, because we have expenses to rent and tech stuff and food, but we're getting there. That's why the tickets. And afterwards, somebody came up to me, blew my mind. It's like, hey, how much did this whole thing cost? And then gave me a Zelle for the whole thing. Like, just somebody who was here. You just never know. So I will just say, if somebody wants to do that today, I welcome it. But literally, I really do. You might have a generous aunt or somebody who has a donor-advised fund. We need to support the arts. You heard from Will. Our country doesn't give, that they're spending $9 million on, lobster and crab legs, $9 million in steak, and they're not funding the friggin' arts. So who's gonna fund the arts? The artists, the people who care and love it. So whether it's BraveMaker or another organization or a film maker that has a Kickstarter, just support the arts. Even if it's $25, it makes a difference. Thank you so much. Last commercial I'll have is in 1 month from now, April 11th, we have a multi-hyphenate. Is Jalen here, by the way? Maybe he's going to come to the mixer. We have a multi-hyphenate summit. We have Steve Canals, Tiffany Thomas, Maria Wright, D'Lo Lewis, works with Ryan Coogler, Sachin Bhatt, who was here last month, Fish and Scripts. Jalen Blott is going to be here, I think, at the mixer. These filmmakers are all multi-hyphenates. They're writer-directors, actor-producers, director-writers. We had this one-day jam-packed event in the Bay Area. I mean, the guy who created Pose, Stephen Canals, is going to be with us on Saturday, April 11th. Drive up to the Bay, stay with a friend, or get a hotel room. We have discounted rooms. It's going to be really dope. We're very excited. Thank you so much. All right, appreciate you. Hang out. The air did kick in here, didn't it? Yeah. So if you want to take a photo up here, great, but there is a step and repeat. Would somebody take a photo here? I didn't get a chance to get a photographer to take a photo of us. If somebody would just shoot that for us and text it, that'd be great. And please tag us. Yeah, the DP, Luke Miller here, everybody, director of photography. Hire him.